The Airbus A320 was launched in March 1984. Since then it has become one of the two most important narrow-body airliners in the world. It is much more modern than its competitor, the Boeing 737, but it also costs much more than the American jet. This product, which we are going to review today, is designed by FlightFactor Aero and shows the Airbus A320-214 equipped with the CFM56 engines. The A320 comes with just one option, which you can see here. It has the normal wingtip fences and, as said before, is equipped with the CFM56 engines. Sadly, there's no option for ERA or NEO engines, and also charters aren't included in the product. FlightFactor currently sells this plane for $89.95, which at the current exchange rate equals 82.7 euros. But now let's dive into the review. Let's talk about the outside modeling first. Overall it is very good. Looking at the nose gear you can see very detailed cables, pipes and feathers. Looking at the engines, the fan blades are very well modeled, however the engine intake is not 100% round, but still looks fine. From the back side of the engines we can look inside, which is great. The back wheels show the same as the front wheels, although there many details are modeled, for example the grid of the brake fans. Also the flaps show the same quality as the rest. Now looking at the fuselage, all windows are cut out and you're able to see through them. Also all four main entry doors are separately modeled and can be opened. This can't be done with the overwing exits. Both cargo latches are very well designed and can be opened. When they are opened you can see inside the cargo departments. Both are completely modeled, which is great and can't be seen on every plane in the Express store. Now let's go further in detail. In the cockpit I quickly turned the red landing gear gravity extension lever to open the gear doors. And what can be found there honestly surprised me a lot. Even at places like this where nobody ever looks at, all pipes etc. are carefully designed and look great. So far this plane really works on a high level. So from the outside the plane is modeled perfectly and gets 10 of 10 points. But the modeling isn't the whole thing. Textures are sometimes even more important for a good appearance. Of course their quality depends a lot on the livery you are using, but since today we only want to value FlightFactor's work, I am using the Airbus house livery, which FlightFactor included in the package. Looking from a reasonable distance on the aircraft, the first look is pretty good. When coming closer we will proceed in the same order as we did with the modeling. The front gear looks good, nothing to complain about. The wheels could be a little bit better, for example the brand of the tire can't be read, which you can on other planes. Also the tire looks a bit blurry, but you can only see this when coming real close to it. Looking at the engines again, honestly the engine intake could have been better. This is a part of the engine where I look a lot of in my opinion, and I think it's too blurry. The fan however looks great again. On the side of the engine cowling you can see the CFM logo, which can be read easily. The slogan below is just a little bit blurry and the caution below the logo can only barely be read. The rest is too small to be read, which isn't a big problem for me. The wings look very good from below. The flaps even have some dirt on it, which looks great. When looking at the wings from above, we see very detailed textures. Now let's have a look in the cargo department again. And to be frank, the textures inside them look better than anywhere else outside the aircraft. Dents and scratches all over the place, very detailed holes for the air conditioning in the ceiling, and rails in the floor for the containers to be moved. Great job FlightFactor. The Rest of the fuselage looks good from outside. Small text can't be read as well, however you can see all screws around the windows, which looks very good. Also the small lines between the different sections of the fuselage can be seen clearly. Overall the texturing could be better at some parts, but overall it is still pretty good. I will give FlightFactor a 8.5 out of 10. First of all, I must say that I don't like the design of all the chairs. You can see that this aircraft interior design most likely isn't from a European airline. You can already tell by the business class seats, which in Europe usually are just normal seats. But we will come to that later. There are two types of seats modeled, the business and the economy class seats. Both look okay. Sadly, there are many edges, but again we have a high level of details. The signs on the ceilings are modeled as well as the panels on the wall. Also the overhead bins look very good. Both toilets can't be entered, however both galleys look fine. Overall the modeling in the cabin of the A320 is not as great as outside, but especially compared to other airliners in the sim market it is still totally acceptable. However, I don't really like all the edges on the 166 seats, so out of 10 points, this aircraft gets an 8. As you already saw when talking about the modeling in the cabin, now we are probably getting to the worst part of this aircraft, the texturing in the cabin. While I really like the textures of the toilet doors and the galley, the seats just look horrible. From far away you can already see how bad the quality is. Additional to that, as mentioned before, I hate the design of the seats. The bluish color mixed with this white one looks horrible and doesn't remind me of a passenger aircraft room inside. The signs in the ceiling look very good again, so same thing here. The seats lower the overall look of the cabin, the texturing gets a 5 of 10. Now we are getting to the most interesting part of the modeling and textures, the cockpit. This is where we as flight sim pilots spend most of the time, so of course expectations are high, and FlightFactor really did a great job in modeling their cockpit. Every single button is 3-dimensional and goes in when pressed. All switches are designed to the smallest detail, and it was impossible for me to find something in this cockpit which doesn't look tremendously good. The rest of the overhead panel looks also good. Above the overhead panel there are some circuit breakers, the ELT and some other switches. Those are all modeled, however only a few switches can be pressed and are animated. At the wall behind the seats we find a lot more circuit breakers and a very nice designed jump seat which is folded together. On its left side some gloves, and below those gloves a beautiful X. On the left side of the pilot seat there's a window which can be opened, some storage room, a microphone and the oxygen mask. Also we see a tablet. As you can see, none of these things are modeled bad, and I think we could go on with this for hours, but overall I think you can tell the cockpit gets a 10 of 10. Let's keep this one short. The texturing on most parts is perfect, many switches have scratches and other little marks. I really like this. It gives the aircraft more the feeling of a real aircraft. Some things however aren't so great, on the trim wheel for example. A pretty simple texture, however somehow the quality there is reasonably worse than on other textures. Other than that it looks great, gets a 9.5 of 10. Well, first I thought I would include the BSS sound pack into this review, which I bought extra for about $20. For those who don't know it, the BSS sound pack includes sounds which were recorded on the real aircraft. But then I noticed that, of course, that sound pack is just great and everything, as mentioned, just sounds like in the real aircraft. So I thought reviewing the normal sound pack that comes out of the box is more interesting. But I compared those standard sounds with the BSS sounds, and that's what came out. First of all, please keep in mind that I don't want to punish FlightFactor by comparing their sounds with the BSS ones. Of course, the BSS sounds might sound a little bit better, but by comparing those sounds to the standard sounds, we can see how close FlightFactor came. So starting off with the switches, well, personally I like both of them. The BSS sounds might sound a little bit louder. Here are some sounds to compare for you. Now let's switch on some power to hear the aircraft firing up. No big differences. Next we will hear the APU starting up from outside, and I think hearing the difference first might make decisions easier. The noise you hear in the beginning is the generator of the ground power unit supplying the aircraft with the power. Don't be confused by that. Well, here we begin to hear huge differences. Knowing the constant sound on the first APU startup wasn't me cutting this too long. Somehow the sounds only start to play when the APU is basically already running. And let's be honest, how cool did the BSS soundbag sound? Just amazing. So now I set the aircraft up for engine start. First we're gonna hear it from the cockpit, secondly from the cabin, and last but not least from outside. As you can hear in the cockpit, no big differences. Actually, I wasn't able to hear any. Let's have a look from the cabin. And now from outside. Okay, this surprised me a little bit. No big differences. If you listen very closely, of course, it is not exactly the same, but still I'm pretty impressed of the standard sounds of FlightFactor included in this product. As you will see in future reviews, this is not happening that often. Now putting some flaps out. Now as those engines are running, let's taxi to the runway to hear the rolling sounds. There we have one of the biggest differences I directly noticed when buying the sound pack. You don't hear that good on the recording, but as soon as you move the thrust lever forward, you hear like a deep roaring sound. I am not an expert in engines, but to me it sounds like more fuel is rushing into the engines, and I really love that sound. Other than that, I noticed that from the seat in the back, the sounds are a little bit deeper, which I, as a fan of basswish sounds, love to hear. By the way, I'm sorry that I forgot to record the taxiing from outside on the BSS sound. My mistake. But now let's go for a takeoff. Or let's better attempt to do so, and hear those CFM engines booting up for takeoff power from the previous perspectives. Okay, here I must say that I like the BSS one much better. They more have the feeling of sitting in a real aircraft. FlightFactor made this one sound a little bit flat. And I think the same applies here. On those last two perspectives, the difference wasn't as big again. Now let's go for a proper takeoff and then fly a really smooth circle around the airport with landing and full tubers.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Too low. Gear. Sink rate. Think rate. Don't sink.
Pull up.
Think rate. Think rate. Think rate. Think rate.
Caution.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
Think rate.
Caution. Taxiway. Caution. Taxiway.
Don't sink. Too low. Gear. Too low. Gear. Don't sink. Too low. Gear. Don't sink. Too low. Gear. 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 Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Think rate. Think rate. Think rate. Think rate.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
Think rate.
$100, 50, 40, 30, 20, retard, 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 5.
First of all, I really apologize that somehow the first recording of the FlightFactor sound stopped just shortly after touchdown without me even knowing it. But now to the comparison. Since you just heard both versions, you can decide yourself which one you like better. When I am flying, I still prefer the BSS sound pack. Much more authentic sounds in my opinion, so I still would buy that one. Well, now we've heard a lot of sounds, and one thing I have to criticize is that the FlightFactor A320 doesn't have any sounds in the replay mode, even with the BSS sound pack. That definitely is very sad and disappointing. I don't know any other plane which has the same issue. Hopefully FlightFactor will fix this in the future. But now let's give a statement on the sounds in this aircraft. I am really impressed. No other payway airliner in the airplane store has such great sounds included. Switches, knobs and things like that all sound great. Engine startup basically also, apart from a few minor differences. The only thing I don't like that much on FlightFactor sounds are the engines when they are spooling up. I love that deep growling, so I personally would still buy the BSS soundtrack again, even though it's still not as necessary as on some other planes. And I think at this point we can say a huge compliments to FlightFactor. And of course the BSS sounds are still better, but since this is one of the best standard sounds I've ever heard, I will give FlightFactor 9 out of 10 points. Well, at least I would like to. But as just mentioned, in the replay mode, there are no sounds. The no sounds are not good at all, so it will be minus 1.5 points for the FlightFactor. Please fix this as soon as possible, it would just be great. So now we have 7.5 of 10 points, which is still pretty good. But as you can see, the replay mode made things a little bit worse. So today we looked at everything apart from the systems. Those will take me a little bit longer to review, which is why I will be doing a second part of this. But here comes a short statement on how the aircraft is performing so far. I really try to be as critical with the aircraft as possible, but it's really hard to find bad things. Let's see how many points the aircraft collected so far and take the average of it. So for the outside modeling we had 10 of 10 points, outside texturing was 8.5 points, and the cabin was not as great with 8 points in the modeling and 5 in texturing. The cockpit however was amazing again with 10 points in the modeling and 9.5 with those textures. And last but not least we had the sounds performing with 7.5 of 10 possible points. This gives us an average of 8.36 points, really good so far. The biggest improvement suggestion so far, please FlightFactor get to work on the textures in the cabin. We will go deeper in this in the final review coming in the next video. As soon as possible I will record the second part of this, but still this might take a little while since at the moment I have a bunch of other stuff to do. Thank you very much for watching, see you then.